Here's an update on the cabinet, state of the cabinets for that kitchen. These were a pretty common style. I guess I'll use this one here as an example. They're actually relatively complex. These are all the doors. I'm working just adjacent to the apartment unit here. I didn't want to travel all the way downstairs to the shop if I didn't have to, although I am regretting the lack of quality work light. I took all the hardware off, hinges and handles. They do have these little springy, it's a simple sort of latch, and I didn't want to bother with removing those. They're going to be all dialed in. I did number this is number 7. I numbered every door on your way around the room. Not that I couldn't figure out where they went, but I put the number on the top of the little latch for every one, so I know which side's up, which side's down, and kind of the order that they go in, which is going to help reinstalling. And I didn't want to disturb that latch. I'm sure it would come back. If I took it off and put it back on, it would come back to exactly where it is now, but it was a bunch of messing around I didn't want to do, and I was hoping that if I left it, then there's that much more likelihood that it would latch smoothly exactly how it used to, and I wouldn't have to dial it in after I reinstall them. It is a pain in my ass now because it sticks down, and so it continues to get stuck on the edge of the workbench, or hold it off the workbench, so it's kind of annoying. However, these have a solid, I want to call it 3/8 of an inch plate on top, solid piece of lumber, and then they are framed like a picture frame around, and then there's a thin piece of plywood applied to that. So they are hollow inside, and they're not just solid with a big rabbit on them. They have a hollow inside. That's important because they are all smooth, and there are quite a few really big doors. It ages the look of that kitchen, and it makes it more mid-century modern looking, and we're trying to get back away from that to a certain degree. We're going to embrace the wainscot. We're going to embrace the chair rail. We may put crown on the ceiling, and that's pushing it into more of a colonial looking kitchen. And so it'd be nice to have a panel door, or to at least throw another shadow line around. This is all from a design point of view. Rather than big smooth surfaces, it's nice to have the shadow line of a panel, and without making new doors for this cabinetry, I'm jumping in to do the cheap and easy fake panel line on these, which you may even see today. The reason I was discussing how thick this piece is on the top is because I'm using the router to put a V-groove in to make that fake panel line, and I don't want to go all the way through this, which would essentially cut right through, and then that piece would fall out of the middle. We want this to still be an integral part of this cabinet. So when it comes to the router setup, I got a V-groove bit, which has just got, I think it's probably, looks like it's smaller than 90 degrees, maybe like a 70 degrees or an 80 degree bevel, and I set the depth of it to about 1/4 of an inch, or at least 2/3 of the thickness of each of these top plates. And then I got the offset guide, and I bolted him up here. He just, a thumb screw attaches to the side of the shoe, and then you can dial him in and out in this way, in and out here, and then you can thumb screw that tightly. So given that will hold me away from the edge a certain amount. Now I can't turn the corner, so I have to go down and stop, and then I have to start exactly on the corner and go again and do that all the way around. So how could I be sure of where I need to stop and where I need to start so that I get a nice corner? That I did with a little jiggy. I basically decided what I wanted this to be from the point of the groove to the outside edge. I figured about 3 inches. So I ripped this piece of cedar at 3 inches on the table saw, and then I stuck this little strip on the side with screws. And I made him long enough, as long as the longest aspect of my biggest door is up here, so he's 36 inches, and that means he'll work for everybody here. I can just put him on until he's tight, and then I can throw a line. Throw a line down that, and then I can throw him on the end. And I get crosshairs. And then when I have those all the way around, and I set the router up by putting him on the edge of the door on the first one. And I brought the tip of that cutter Made sure the tip of the cutting tool came right over and stopped. That's hard to see. I'm sorry I haven't got 3 hands, but I made sure the tip came over and stopped right on the pencil line, and then I tightened the thumb screw. And I'll leave the router set up that way. The duration of this project, I'm going to go around and put pencil lines all the way around, and then I'll go around and carefully route all the way around, and it means I can just cut along here until I'm just shy of centered on that pencil line. Then I start over here and I come back down to lined up with this cut, and then I just carefully dial that in until it goes right around the corner perfectly, and I'm in good shape. The one place you can make an error here, for example, I'm working on, well, there's several places, everywhere is an error if you're not careful, to be honest. Some of the things I'm watching out for, since I'm working on the garbage can to put this at a lower level, which is easier for me to do, I don't want, because this guide sticks down farther than this surface, I don't want to be following along here and then just start right around that garbage can, which would pull my cutter out and around. You have to be aware of that. So I have to make sure that I move this around as I go and make sure this is the leading edge. Another thing, there were some paint drips here. Let me see if I can find the spot where it screwed me up. Here's some. Notice how that got a little warble in that? Looky, looky. There's some paint drips here. Bloop. So you're floating along with that guide, and if the guide wiggles a little bit, it wiggles the cutter. This is all right. There it is there. You can kind of see the bubble. There's the bubble, and there's the corresponding wiggle in the groove. I'll have to carefully file that out and straighten it out to the best of my ability. Other than that, this went as quickly as in about half the time that it's taken me to describe it. So I'll be through here in half an hour or less, and hopefully you'll see when the cupboard doors go back on how much of a difference it'll make. If you can imagine sort of no visual interest here, this adds a lot. You get a natural highlight, a natural shadow. It'd be nice if you could put wainscot in there or something else, but this will have to do. With all those repeating shapes, it'll really make that crisp and sharp looking in the kitchen, and added a level of detail that wasn't there before, really quick and easy. So this is an excellent trim router. It's one of my few corded tools that I'll live with for the time being. It came with that following guide. It's a great, it's like $100 for a little Mustang router, trim router, and then it was like maybe $25 for the cutter. So, you know, inside of $130 and a pencil and what have you. If you have some smooth doors in your kitchen, if you're just careful about how you attack it, you can change the look of your kitchen in an afternoon or over a weekend, depending on how serious you get with it. But pop the hardware off, cut a panel lines in and put them back, and it'll change the whole look. In fact, if you have finished paint and you just leave the unfinished wood down in the groove, that can be a cool detail, depending on whether or not you echo that real wood look somewhere else in the kitchen. You can also stain that or put gold leaf in it. You can go wild. You can put a different feature color. You know, if our whole kitchen is going to be blue and we have an enamel top table with red accents, and we're going to try to pull a couple more red accents maybe in the hardware. But you know, it'd be a bit extreme in this case to put red in there. But if you had a situation where you had an accent color and you wanted to put the accent color in the panel groove, it could be cool, even if it might be a little kitschy. So that's a neat trick I wanted to show. And we'll be back when this is finished.